everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie and this is all about my life after gastric bypass surgery, and today's video is the big anticipated 18-month update. So stay tuned and we will get into all the nitty-gritty on what's happened over the last 18 months. So why is it that I'm calling this the big update, the big anticipated 18-month update? Well, if you are a returning subscriber on my channel, you probably have heard me say multiple times in the past that the window, the statistic window for gastric bypass surgery is really 12 to 18 months in terms of when you're going to get the majority of what you're going to get from the surgery. The vast majority of people who get surgery after 18 months have lost the bulk of the weight that they're going to from the assistance from the surgery alone. And the rest of that is really kind of up to you, your hard work, your perseverance to get the rest of the weight off. The effective window, I guess, for the surgery is really 12 to 18 months. So reaching that 18-month mark really for me is kind of the culmination of the entire surgery and a chance to look back and really see how far I've come. And it's kind of like the last big milestone, honestly. I will continue to do monthly updates, but from this point on, it's really not the same, is it? Before I get too far into this update, I just want to say that if you're not yet a subscriber, you'll be happy to know that for the next forever, it is free to be a subscriber. So go ahead and hit the subscription button and ring the notification bell so you get notified whenever one of my videos goes live. And I'll be running that promotion for the foreseeable future. So feel free to jump on that now while supplies last. But really, all I ask is that if you do like this kind of content, if you do appreciate the updates that I have, the research videos that I've put out, you can show your support by subscribing to the channel. That's the best way to show your support. That and engaging with the channel, partially because that's great for the algorithm, like all YouTubers are going to tell you, but also I really like that interaction. I find the interaction with people and the questions and the back and forth that I have with my subscribers to be one of my favorite parts about my channel. So I very much do enjoy and appreciate the feedback when I see what videos people do like, when I get to read those comments and interact with everybody. So feel free to let me know how you're doing, what other kind of content you'd like to see me do, any questions or comments that you have, any feedback, and I would love to talk with you. Like usual, I'm going to get into the stats right away so that I can kind of get them out of the way. So I'm going to pop them up right here. I started my journey at my heaviest weight of 383.3 pounds. When I decided to have surgery, I started and weighed in at 374 pounds. And after the 8-week pre-op diet, my surgery weight when I went into surgery was 344 pounds. I weighed in on May 31st at 203.4 pounds. And on July 1st, I weighed in at 199.2 pounds. So that is a total loss of 174.8 pounds and a loss of 4.2 pounds for the month of June. For the last several months, I was working on trying to take more regular measurements so that I can see that change in my body as well as the scale. I haven't been super great at doing that every single month, and I haven't done it for this month, but I did notice that the last time I did it, I'm really bad at that. I'm really bad at taking measurements in the same spots, and I feel like I just flail around when I'm doing it. So I've decided that starting from now on, I'm going to keep an Excel spreadsheet of the different areas that I am actually measuring, because what I've been doing is doing it in the Bariatric app, and that really only has a handful of vague measurements that it wants you to keep track of. And for instance, when it was saying waist, I noticed that sometimes I was doing like the smallest part of my waist, and then sometimes I was doing the largest part of my waist. I couldn't remember what I'd done previously, and it was all sorts of messed up. So I'm going to start an Excel spreadsheet that's going to detail what part of my body I am measuring and what those measurements are, so that I can be a little bit better at doing it, not only more frequently, but more accurately, because I'm very bad at it. But one of the nice things is that this last month, I really didn't need those measurements to feel the difference. I've been working on trying to buy a lot of clothes, partially because I just kind of like the feeling. I went so many years for so long in my life avoiding buying clothes that it feels fun to be able to like excitedly buy something. And the combination between buying new clothes and seeing how my old clothes are fitting, and not just my old clothes, but like somewhat recently purchased clothes that are now older by a couple of months, and how those are fitting differently, all of that has been very eye-opening. I'm really noticing that clothes that I bought not that long ago are really starting to get loose on me. And one pair of pants, for example, I can't wear without a belt anymore. Like, I literally had to go out and buy a belt so that I could wear my pants around the yard that I was doing all my yard work in, because they started falling off of me. And I'm like, I'm not gonna buy new pants for yard work. Like, these are perfectly fine, but they don't fit anymore. So that's one thing that I was noticing. Things are definitely fitting looser than before. Also, while I'm buying clothes, I am noticing that certain styles and certain types of clothes, I'm actually buying in a size large, or in a couple of cases, I bought a size medium for certain things because of the style and the way they fit. It was just way too loose, especially like in the upper like chest and shoulder area, unless I went down in size. So that is very, very eye-opening for me in terms of how things are changing and how my body is shaped and how it's changing. Obviously, I don't need to take measurements to know that that's a big change. Another good example is I went for a walk yesterday and I wanted to put on some leggings. So I dug some out of my dresser and realized that I didn't recognize them. And it took me a moment to realize that they were the size large I had accidentally purchased months ago that I wasn't able to fit in. And I was like, oh, that's why I don't recognize them. I like shoved them away because I couldn't really fit in those. And for fun, I decided to try it and see if it fit yet. And although I did certainly have to squeeze myself into those leggings, they did fit. Like, I was able to actually wear them on that walk. So they were tight, but they weren't so tight that they were impossible to pull up all the way, or impossible to walk in for a long length of time without, maybe my legs going numb or something. So that was a really, really big one for me, because I don't even think I could get those fully up my thigh the last time I tried them. They just were definitely too small for me. And I was like, well, I'm going to keep them because I may eventually get into a size large legging, and they weren't that expensive. So I'm glad I kept them around, because that's been a really, really interesting thing to see change and open up for me now. Now that I've hit Wonderland and that I'm in 199 territory, I really want to emphasize, or de-emphasize rather, the scale. I've been talking a lot about it recently on how I really want to not focus on the number on the scale so much, and I fluctuate between feeling like that's easy to do and feeling like that's impossible to do. And going forward from this point on, now that I'm in the 100s in terms of my weight, now I'm really just about these milestone goals in terms of these, arbitrary weights and things. And I don't really want to focus on each individual pound and things like that. So I am going to switch over. And I know I've talked about this before and I haven't really made that transition, but it is a really big goal of mine to, from this point on, de-emphasize what that weight is every month and really focus on those measurements so that you guys can see those types of changes. And I'm going to start to incorporate in my monthly updates more pictures, more comparison pictures and measurements, so that we can really kind of visually follow along with my changes and not really focus so much on that number. That number has a tendency to drive me and a lot of other people absolutely crazy, and I don't want to give it that power. One way for me to do that is to start transitioning to focusing on measurements and pictures a lot more. So because of that, I'm going to share that more on this channel moving forward. I will still go ahead and share my weight, but it's not going to be such a big focal point, and it'll probably be included in my stats when I put them up here, but not really talked about too much in terms of detail. I think that's important for my own mental health, but I also think that that's important for everyone else moving forward. If I'm not emphasizing that quite so much, maybe other people will feel comfortable not putting so much power on that number for their own journeys. Lead by example, I guess, maybe. A couple more non-scale victories that I have noticed in the last month and been really focusing on is just my ability to do things. And I've talked about this in, a number of my most recent videos. Really, it has been extremely noticeable, my stamina and my ability to do things that I need to do around the house and around the yard. Being able to get things done and actually have the energy and the ability to haul things and do a bunch of yard work, get down on my hands and knees and do some weeding, things that were very, very difficult for me. And, if you've never been as high as 383 pounds, you might not realize just how difficult that is on your body and how difficult it is to do very basic things. Right after I had decided to go through with surgery, my grandma came over to give me some raspberry bush starts, which promptly died in a heat wave, so I'm really bummed about that. We spent a bit of time in the yard trying to transplant the raspberry bushes, and it was extremely embarrassing for me and very, very noticeable for me that surgery really was probably necessary and the thing that I needed to move forward with, because not only could I not keep up with my grandma when it comes to planting. Now, granted, she is an avid gardener and she knows what she's doing and she's used to that, but I am much younger than my grandma and I was winded. I was not able to get down on the ground very easily. I had a hard time getting up off of the ground. It was exhausting for me to try to truck across the yard to go fill up the watering can. All of those things were extremely noticeable to me, and it was like, my whole life was being put under a magnifying glass that day, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is entirely too difficult. I can't believe that I've gotten to this point. And I think those are the kinds of things that stick with me as I'm moving forward and realizing that I can do those things with ease now. And not only that, but I want to do them and I enjoy doing them, where just getting up and down off of the ground was absolutely exhausting in the past. So those are the types of things that I'm really, really focusing on. And honestly, those are the things that I should always be focusing on. The number on the scale means nothing when it's compared to the doors that are opening for me in terms of what I can and can't do in my life now. And along those lines, I never thought that after 18 months after surgery, I would get to 199. I never really thought that I would get to this point. And I don't mean that in the sense that I didn't think I could do it, or that, I didn't think I had it in me, or I didn't think I'd get, this far. But I mean it in the sense that I had very little expectations on how things were going to proceed and at what time frame after surgery. I was very much just along for the ride. Obviously doing the things that I'm supposed to do, following instructions and the, after surgery care and the plan, but very much so just kind of seeing where I land and not too worried about a time frame or expectations on, different milestones I should be at by certain times. And that made this a really fun journey. That doesn't mean that it was always easy by any means, but it was very fun to be able to be surprised and to just kind of wholesomely enjoy the experience and learn about myself in the process as I was going through it. I had no expectations, but I'll certainly tell you right now that my brain was not thinking you're going to be under 200 pounds a year and a half from now. I certainly didn't think that. And it blows my mind to this day as I'm thinking about it. A year and a half is not a lot of time. Sometimes it feels like an eternity, but when you look back on it, a year and a half is not a lot of time at all. And to have made that big of a change and have that big of a turnaround in 180 in my life in that amount of time is astonishing to me. And people talk all the time about how surgery saves their lives, and it was the best decision they ever made. And I always used to think that people were being pretty dramatic, or maybe they were in a worse medical state than me, because I really didn't have a lot of comorbidities. I really didn't have a lot of other medical issues that were cropping up other than just the general unhealthiness of being so vastly overweight and unable to do a lot of things in my life. I was very lucky that I was not pre-diabetic. And like I said, I didn't have any medical issues or anything specifically cropping up from my obesity. And so I thought, maybe those people were diabetic and it's changed the way that they've been able to proceed with their life. I've since realized that I really do think that this surgery has also saved my life. Not for any particular medical reason, but I am such a different person than I was. I'm such a better person in a lot of ways, and I enjoy my life so much better. My quality of life shot up like 3,000%, and I didn't realize how bad of a way I had it, how bad things were, until things started being different. Sometimes we get caught up in thinking that I'm healthy and I'm very lucky, and although I'm very obese, I am, I'm healthy and I work out and I'm doing the best I can to eat healthy, and so things must be okay. And it's a very complicated situation, but ultimately, until I was able to make the changes to actually make my life better and realize what I was missing out on, I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea just how bad things were. So to sit here and reflect on the last 18 months, this has been probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. Just, physically, I can have days that are just really, really difficult to get through. I have changed the way that I eat, not just voluntarily what I'm eating, but what my body can handle. Some days are better than others. I mean, I have permanently rerouted my insides. That's not a small thing. That's not something I could just kind of shrug away. It's a big deal. I've permanently changed my body. That makes for some days that are really difficult and some days that, are easier and much better to get through. But also mentally, it's the same thing. Some days are just so difficult, and I struggle with body image and self-esteem and body dysmorphia and hormones going up and down and just feeling it all. I struggle with that sometimes. I mean, this has been one of the most difficult experiences of my life, but it's also been one of the most rewarding, and I can feel like I'm finally becoming the person that I've always wanted to be and just didn't know how to do. And my past me didn't have the energy or ability to do those things either. I got stuck in this loop, and it was difficult to get out of, and it was difficult to see just how deep the hole I was digging myself into really was. I came to a realization the other day that I am very, very happy with my abilities in my life right now. I am introducing more things into my life, more activities. I have the motivation and the willpower and the stamina to do a lot of the things around the house that I've always wanted to do, a lot of errands and chores and yard work and housework and getting things up to par. I'm just checking a bunch of things off of my list, and I'm very, very happy and satisfied with where I'm at. Does that mean that I'm going to stop making an effort to lose weight? No, I still have a ways to go. I'm still considered overweight. I still have weight to lose, but I'm not going to be so focused on it anymore. I'm going to let it happen as fast or slow as it's going to happen naturally as I continue to just expand my life. The more active I get, the more changes I'm going to see in general, and I'm just going to ride the wave at this point. I've got a really good wave going with, the changes in my life and what I'm able to do, and I'm just going to keep riding that and see where it takes me. And I'm really, really excited about that. So there you go. That's my 18-month update. I am just blown away that it's already been 18 months and that I'm at this point, because it really just feels like, a few months ago that I had surgery. It just feels like it went by so fast. I am so grateful for everything that I have experienced, everything that I've been able to go through. Ultimately, my experience has been a lot easier than some other people's experiences that I've seen, so I'm very grateful and blessed for that. And I'm excited to see where the future takes me, because instead of kind of focusing on getting the most that I can out of a certain window of time, now I really feel like the focus is turned to the rest of my life and how can I maintain this? How can I continue moving forward in a way that will help me maintain this weight loss and maintain these positive changes in my life? Because I think people underestimate just how difficult that is, especially if you have spent the majority of your life worried about weight loss. At some point, things switch over and you start to worry about maintenance, and that is not as easy as people make it seem. And I will be approaching that at some point. So now I turn to the future and try to figure out how to keep this going, how to not squander everything that I've put into this, and just also enjoy my life. Because for the first time in a really long time, I can and I am. So thank you so much for watching. Make sure you stay happy and healthy and always look at the big picture. And I will see you guys in the next one.